I'm just gonna get straight into it. I think I'm gonna read The Hobbit next, and there was a big part of me that really wished, well, I wasn't making videos when I read The Lord of the Rings last year, and I'm kind of sad about that because it was a real journey for me. I ended up like sobbing at the end of it. I don't know if this is crying material, but I just figured that I'd rather be filming than not. And then if anything interesting happens, if I think of anything interesting to say, or, you know, the ending is particularly impactful, then I have this beautiful video to show you. I am absolutely obsessed with Lord of the Rings. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it in almost every single video I've filmed in the last, what, like 10 months, 8 months, something like that. So for anybody who doesn't know, The Hobbit is J.R.R. Tolkien's first novel. It was published in 1937, and it is set before Lord of the Rings, obviously, because it was released before. It's the story of Bilbo Baggins, who, if you've read or seen Lord of the Rings, is Frodo's uncle? I think he's his uncle. And this is the story of Bilbo's interaction with the ring, how he ends up with the One Ring. I'll read the blurb for you. Bilbo Baggins is a hobbit who enjoys a comfortable, unambitious life, rarely travelling further than the pantry of his hobbit hole in Bag End. But his contentment is disturbed when the wizard Gandalf and a company of 13 dwarves arrive on his doorstep one day to whisk him away on a journey there and back again. They have a plot to raid the treasure hoard of Smaug the Magnificent, a large and very dangerous dragon. Oh my god. So I'm reading the HarperCollins edition. My dad bought this for my birthday this year because he knew how excited I was to read it. It has this like gorgeous cover. I love it. But I didn't realise it was illustrated. That's quite fun. I was just having like a flick through and just saw the pictures. I do love an illustration. Oh, they're done by Tolkien. I didn't realise that he was an artist as well as a writer. That's really cool. That's actually really cool. Yeah, I'm so excited to get started. I've been putting this off for so long because, well, I say so long, I've only had the book like a few months, but I've been putting off over the last few days because it's like I don't want to start it because I don't want to finish it. Like, you can only read a book for the first time once, you know, and I'm convinced I'm going to love it. Like, I really enjoyed Tolkien's writing style in Lord of the Rings. I loved his character work. I just understand that I'm not going to get this experience again for the first time, and I'm like nervous to let that slip by, you know. I don't know, but I'm gonna finish my cereal that's going soggy and then I will get back to you when I've started. So Tolkien was contacted by somebody, like saying basically that people would want more, and he replied, "I cannot think of anything more to say about the hobbits." And then the book, the first edition, sells out, and he replies saying that he's started the first chapter, which then became Lord of the Rings. But like, imagine him thinking he had nothing else to say about the Hobbit, and then he goes and writes that masterpiece. Insanity. I feel like I'm like, I don't know, walking into a fairy circle or something. So it's currently about 1 o'clock. I haven't made too much progress. I've just finished chapter 3. I don't really have loads to say because obviously I've read so little. The first thing is just a comment about something I've noticed that's sort of a commonality between a lot of Tolkien's main characters, like Bilbo in this one and then some of the characters in The Lord of the Rings. There is so much mention in thought or in dialogue about missing home. So like, again, I'm only on chapter 3. There's already been 2 separate mentions of Bilbo thinking about his home, his sofa, well, I think it's like his chair, by the fire, and how much he wishes he was there. If I remember correctly, that was mentioned quite a lot in The Lord of the Rings as well, was Frodo and the other hobbits missing their home. Most of the book is about the drive to protect your home no matter the cost, you know? Like, the hobbits do this whole journey in order to protect, you know, the world, but in a more specific sense, their home and their lives. And even the sort of last few chapters of The Lord of the Rings is them directly protecting their home from the people who have sort of come in and taken over. And I was just thinking, and like I noticed it and I made like a little comment about it, and then I was just thinking about how, like, we know that Tolkien fought in the First World War, and there are so many sort of poems and things like that about the lads who were on the Western Front missing home and their families. And I can't help but wonder, I mean, I know obviously that a lot of The Lord of the Rings particularly is, you know, like, it's about war at the end of the day. And he wrote The Lord of the Rings during World War II. He was too old to fight. I believe his sons fought. At the very least, they were both in the military. I just looked that up. I can't help but wonder how much of the not war side, just about the journey, was inspired by his experience of being away from home. I don't know. I don't really have like a, you know, big statement to say about that. It was just an observation that I made. Another thing that I really enjoy, that I wasn't going to mention but I'm going to mention, is I love reading from the perspective of, like, I want to say like sheltered characters. So they get to the edge of the Misty Mountain and Bilbo fully just thinks that that is, you know, the mountain, because he's never seen a mountain before. And it made me think of, like, you know, when you sort of hear about people who live in extremely hot climates coming to, like, you know, usually the northern hemisphere and witnessing snow for the first time, and it's like insane because you sort of only heard about, you know, whatever. I imagine it's a lot different now because of the internet, you know, but I just find it really sort of interesting because I think we sort of take for granted a little bit how impressive landscapes are, how impressive nature is, and then you sort of meet somebody who has never experienced, you know, a particular site before, and they're in awe. Reading from that sort of naive perspective, it makes the descriptions of the environment more impactful because it's impactful to the character you're reading from. So, like, instead of, you know, they're just passing a mountain, you're experiencing the awe of the moment because the main character is in awe. The final thing I want to talk about is actually a little concern. I'm only 3 chapters in, it's so silly to be talking about this already, but I'm a little bit worried that this book's going to feel rushed to me, because the thing I love about The Lord of the Rings is how long it is. Not, obviously, that it is long, but you get so much time to sit in every sort of environment with the characters, and for me that's what made me fall in love with the world and made me fall in love with Tolkien's writing. And listen, we're less than halfway through and we're already out of the Shire, so I'm just a little bit worried because we've made quite a bit of progress really on the journey, and there's obviously, I'm on chapter 3, so the description's sort of getting there. Like, the description of the landscape as they were making their way to Rivendell was fantastic as always, but yeah, I'm just a little bit nervous that we're not going to get as much chance to sit with the story as you did in The Lord of the Rings. I'm definitely not one of those people who think that Tolkien blabbers on for too long. I could listen to the man talk for England. So I'm kind of nervous that this is going to be like The Lord of the Rings for people who don't want to read Lord of the Rings, you know. I'm keeping up hope. I'm enjoying it, so, you know, it's not a negative yet. It's definitely not like a negative thing about it. It's just something that I'm a bit like, ooh, you know, I hope, because, you know, like, we barely know anything about any of the characters, even Bilbo, really. So I'm hoping that we get a bit more of that as we... I guess my point is I'm worried that it's going to be, because it's so short, it's going to be very plot forward, which is obviously fine because you don't want it to, like, feel empty of plot, but I feel like The Lord of the Rings balanced that really well, where the plot was constantly moving forward but you still had lots of time. I mean, you know, it's 3 like 500, 600 page books, so you had loads of time to sit with the story And it wasn't just like this thing happened and this thing happened and this thing happened. And I'm a bit worried that this will lean more towards the more fast-paced action. It's not necessarily a negative, but it would be slightly unexpected from Tolkien, if that makes sense, given what I've read. Maybe it's just that I, should have read The Hobbit first and then gone into The Lord of the Rings, because obviously this was published first. But that's not how I did things, so I can only speak from the perspective that I have. So, but that's my thoughts so far. I'm gonna keep reading. Like I said, it's 1 o'clock now, so it's been like 4 hours. I haven't really made much progress. I keep taking breaks because I have really bad hay fever and it's making my eyes really itchy. So like reading's putting quite a lot of strain on my eyes. I've also been really, really hungry today for some reason. Like I feel like I've eaten so much and I keep stopping to have like drinks and stuff. So yeah, let's keep going. So I've read 6 chapters now, and can I just say the last like 2 or 3 chapters have been so like action-packed. Obviously I'm probably going to be a bit spoilery in this particular video, so sorry about that. Click off if you don't want spoilers. Bilbo has now met Gollum in the caves. I feel like that whole sort of setup is very different to in the movie, but I don't really remember very much about the movie at all. I literally watched them once. I couldn't even remember what the name of the location was. It's the Lonely Mountain. I kept getting the name mixed up with the one that shows up in The Lord of the Rings, where they find Balin's. I really loved that scene. I thought it was so tense. And even the riddle scene where it's like they're sort of back and forth. The tension in those like 3 chapters was just like they were paced so well. Like you go from the sort of super action of the chase of the goblins and then the super tense like back and forth between Bilbo and Gollum, and then another sort of really action-packed back and forth. I just thought it was really great. And then you sort of have the downtime and then they hear wargs. I really enjoy that in this you learn a little bit more about the creatures of the world. I feel like really the only creatures you get super into in The Lord of the Rings is the Ents, which, don't get me wrong, one of my favourite parts of Lord of the Rings. Because obviously I feel like in like culture and media, we do associate orcs, they're referred to as goblins in this one, but we do see orcs and wargs as like bros. But in this, it explains that they have like an alliance, and the wargs can speak. Well, they speak in warg language, but Gandalf can understand it. So we find out what they're like talking about, and we also learn that because I feel like in the movie, Gandalf summons the eagles, and that's what makes everybody go like, "Why are we here, bro? Why are we on this mission?" But in this, you find out that they're just doing their own thing. Some of them are really evil, some of them are not. But mostly they just don't get on with anybody, really. I really enjoy having that insight into the... Tolkien's world building is just on a whole other level. Even though I'm only sort of a portion of the way through, like, this feels like such a lived-in world. And it definitely goes for his other work as well. I just feel like you've stepped into the book and you feel so immersed in the landscape that he creates. And that's definitely why his books speak to me so much. They're the ultimate, like, escapist novels, right? Where it's not just about how well written the characters are, although I will say, in comparison to The Lord of the Rings, I definitely think there's some lack here. Mostly because you're dealing with such a massive cast. There's 9 members of the Fellowship, and even then, obviously, one of them is absent for most of the books. And then, even then, it's split into, like, 3 halves. Like it's split into 2 halves, and then one of those is also split into 2 halves. So you have a pair, a trio, and another pair. And I feel like that meant you got a decent amount of time learning all of these characters. Here we have 15 characters. And realistically, like barely any of them have spoken yet. Like we're really only getting any insight into Bilbo at the moment, and maybe a little bit of Gandalf, but I do feel like a lot of that is because I already have an impression of Gandalf. I know his character, and so it's very easy to tack what I know onto the rest of what I'm like. You know what I mean? So even Thorin, who obviously I know from watching the movies is an incredibly central character, at this point in the book, we really don't know anything about him. He doesn't seem any more significant than the rest of them. If anything, what's his name? Dory. Dory's more significant than Thorin currently, because Dory's the one that keeps getting lumped with Bilbo. The two of them are really going through it. And like you can tell I'm enjoying the book so much. I think like the dialogue is so well written, Bilbo is so well written, the action's well written, the descriptions are well written. I just feel like we're not quite learning the characters as much as I was hoping for, because the way that Tolkien presented friendship was my favourite part of The Lord of the Rings. I thought the characters' development and their relationships with each other was the strongest element of the whole books. I mean, for me, that's what the books were about, or they were about connection of the fellowship with each other. And I feel like this one is more action-led, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, it's just not quite what I was expecting from a Tolkien. I think this is why I kind of struggle with reading an author's backlog, is that I'll always compare them. Like, I just finished Daisy Jones and the Six, and the entire way through I was just thinking, is this as good as Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo? And I feel like I need to get out of that habit, because it's doing me no favours. Like, this book is doing great as a standalone, but like my brain is just like, it's kind of missing bits from Lord of the Rings. But it's not a bad book. It's not a bad book at all. And like, I feel like if I hadn't read The Lord of the Rings first, I would be sat here like, oh my god, this is amazing. But it's just that I've like set these expectations for Tolkien and his writing, and I just need to get rid of those. I'm gonna have some dinner soon, so I think I'm gonna take a break for a bit and play some Sims. But yeah, I will update when I've read some more. These dwarves would not survive a horror movie. They wouldn't survive a horror movie. I'm not setting up properly because I'm literally about to go to bed. I finished chapter 10, so I'm over halfway through now, and I'm really enjoying it. I really loved the scene of them leaving Mirkwood. Again, I'm trying not to be too spoilery. Honestly, it kind of reads a lot like a D&D campaign. You know, those ones where it's like, it's just a journey, the whole thing is just going to a place, but there's so many like encounters on the way that it just takes so long. It definitely feels like that, and I think it's bringing me so much joy. It doesn't feel like there is as much stakes as in Lord of the Rings, but I'm kind of enjoying that about it. It kind of does just feel cozy and like a folk story type thing. We are almost at the mountain. I don't really know or remember from the movies. I like, because, you know, the story was very famously drawn out to make 3 movies. So I'm really curious to see how much of this, particularly the final movie, it just wasn't a thing. I don't really feel like I have too much to say, but definitely just it feels like a D&D game, and I'm loving it. I'm enjoying it a lot. It definitely has like a different feel to Lord of the Rings, but I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. It's just different. I'm gonna go to bed now because it's pretty late. I'm pretty sure it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock. I just really wanted to finish chapter 10 because I'm getting breakfast with my dad in the morning, so I don't know what time I'm gonna get home. And I think once I get home I might just sit and power through and just read the rest of it. If I wasn't so inclined to play The Sims, I probably could have got through the whole thing today, but you know, you gotta find balance with hobbies. So unless I get home and decide that I want to play more Sims, I definitely think that I could. I mean, I can get through 9 chapters anyway, but we'll see. So it's 2:30. I got a little bit distracted playing Animal Crossing when I got home from breakfast with my dad. I've got 9 chapters left of The Hobbit. I don't know if I'm going to finish this today. I might have to finish it tomorrow night, but oh well. Let's get straight in. Gonna take a break to get some sweets. My sweet of choice is, and always will be, squashies. They're just so good. Great texture, everything. And there we have this little hobbit hole. And we're done. I am going to go take a shower, and then I'm probably going to have to edit a little bit of the video before I film my final piece because I've run out of storage on my phone. I'll come back to you when I have made my thoughts make sense. I definitely feel like I've been sort of bitten by my own expectations with this book. And also partially, I think I was really hoping that the vlog for this book was going to be super oh my god, this is amazing and super exciting. And the fact that it hasn't quite gone that way is sort of the fact that the video's not got the way I expected is kind of, I feel like, impacting the way I feel about the book. But I'm still learning the whole video thing and filming and stuff like that. This is my second reading vlog ever. But yeah, I want to talk a little bit about my feelings on the book. It is a little bit later than I wanted it to be. It's 9 o'clock. But, whatever. I think this is probably going to be quite a short little overview of all my feelings, because obviously I've talked quite a bit already about various things that I like. First and foremost, I really like the narrative style of this book. It really makes you feel like Tolkien is reading you a bedtime story. Obviously, that's how the book started, it was a bedtime story for his kids. But the way that he writes, there are often times where he'll refer to the audience hearing the story, and from my understanding it's because Bilbo is supposedly writing this down. You're hearing it as though it's a sort of folk story that's being passed down. And I really enjoy that. It really makes me feel like I'm sort of a kid again, sitting down in a classroom or whatever and being read a story. That's definitely the right type of vibe for a fantasy book like this. Particularly because Tolkien's world building is just incredible. I don't quite think the descriptions were as monumental as I found them to be in the main trilogy, but at the same time they go to Lothlorien in the Lord of the Rings. There's a lot more, they travel a lot further, they see many different things, and I think, mountains aren't as interesting to describe, I guess. I was super happy to learn more about the creatures who live in the world, and I found it to be just as immersive as the trilogy. I also got really attached to our main character. I absolutely love Bilbo. I think he's absolutely hilarious. And the dude's a burglar. I mean, Gandalf really chose the right guy. There are 2 important items in this story. Bilbo sees both of them and is instantly like, I'm going to put that in my pocket. I'm not telling anybody I've got it. Literally the most ideal burglar, right? Practically a fated burglar. I think they even talk at the end about prophecy and things like that, but Gandalf definitely saw what was coming, and he definitely chose right in sending Bilbo on the original quest, because he has sticky fingers. I really, really enjoyed Bilbo. I think he's maybe one of my favourite characters of all time. He doesn't quite beat out Sam, don't get me wrong. Sam is on a whole other level. And also, actually, Gollum. I despise Gollum as a character. He makes me feel viscerally uncomfortable. I genuinely feel sick in every single scene I'm reading of him, but that intense reaction is why I think he's one of the best written characters of all time. I think that Tolkien really did a bang-up job of the way he writes Gollum, the way he writes how Gollum moves and speaks. Just is so impactful. You really... Gollum really makes my skin crawl. And that's kind of exactly what I want with a disturbing character like him. And that scene was just so tense. I loved the riddle scene. I also really enjoyed the scene where Bilbo introduces himself to Smaug and he's talking in riddle. Oh my god, I just thought they're so well written. And even the like lyrics, because I'm really not like a lyrics in a book kind of person. I tend to just sort of skim them. But I love reading the lyrics in Tolkien books, to the point where I even, like, feel like I come up with the tunes in my head, and, like, the Dwarven tunes sound very different to the Hobbit tunes, sound very different to the Elven, like, I just think he's such a master at world building and even character writing. I don't think that my issue with the character writing in this book comes from where there is character writing. My issue comes from where there's not character writing, like the absence of it, because I really didn't feel attached really to any of the dwarves. Maybe Bomber, but that's mostly because all of his scenes were humorous and humor's like the way to my heart. Particularly Thorin, like, I just really wish that we had seen more of his personality and character before we got to the second half when they were in the mountain, because it just feels a little bit like his actions come out of left field because you don't know anything about him. And I was kind of disappointed in how little you learn about the dwarves and just sort of every side character, even Bard. Like, I really wish we had met Bard when they were in the lake town. I don't remember the name of it. It begins with an E. When they were in the lake town the first time, because he just sort of turns up and then he's there. I mean, really my issue with this book is that it isn't longer, which I suppose is testament to Tolkien's writing, that I want more of it. I think part of it is my sort of the expectations I had going in, and that's on me. But people talk about how Tolkien dawdles, you know, in his writing. I want the dawdling. I want to dawdle with Tolkien. And I wish we'd dawdle more in the book. I wish that we'd sat with the characters more and gotten to know them a bit better, in the same way that, you know, you really get to know all four of the hobbits in The Lord of the Rings. Even the sort of, like, smaller main characters like Gimli and Legolas, you sort of get their personalities very well from the dialogue. And I just felt like that was lacking a little bit here. And that's just really sad. It's just really sad. Because the action scenes, particularly in the first half, were fantastic. If the character development had been there as strongly as the action was, it would have been a perfect book. It would have been a perfect book. But it just... there wasn't enough book to do it in. Really did enjoy the action scenes. I did find the fight scene... this is my bookmark, by the way. I did find the fight scene a little bit wanting. Again, I just wish it had been longer. I just wish we'd seen more of it. The whole big battle is a single chapter, and Bilbo's knocked out for, like, most of the battle. Yeah. My review of this book is that I really enjoyed it. I would have enjoyed it more if there was more of it. And that's really all I feel I need to say, to be honest. I was so excited for this to be a super hyper, upbeat, really enjoyed vlog. And I did enjoy the book, but I wouldn't say I really enjoyed it. It's definitely not a favourite. But I suppose that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes, isn't it? You're never going to know when you start one of these sort of reading vlogs whether or not you're going to enjoy the book. So I imagine that's probably why people tend to do them with multiple books rather than just one. I'll have to give that a think. I really am sort of new to this whole video thing, so I think I need to get used to things not necessarily going as expected. And I suppose, listen, if any book was going to have an unexpected vlog, it's The Unexpected Journey, you know? Anyway, I think I'm going to leave it there. I really hope you've enjoyed the video. I have quite enjoyed making it. I really enjoy making the sort of reading vlog videos. I hope you've enjoyed hearing my thoughts about The Hobbit. I don't feel like it's necessarily been as thoughtful as I was expecting it to be, But again, you know, that's par for the horse. Sometimes this is going to happen. I will probably be talking about The Hobbit again in what I think is going to be a June wrap-up. I've never filmed a wrap-up video before because I have been in like a really bad reading slump for like a year. But I think I'm going to be filming a June one because I've already read quite a bit this month and I'm still feeling in the reading mood. So I'm excited for that. You can check out the books that I'm planning on reading in June here. Some of them are already done, which is exciting, including this one. So yeah, I think I've said everything I need to say until the June wrap up. Hopefully I will see you in that video. Bye! Look at him, he's a smoking mushroom. What a cutie.